So in the last video, we were learning how to bake high poly details into a low poly model. And I forgot to demonstrate one map, and I booted it back up to show you that, but just know it's really no different than baking the ambient occlusion. But this time we're going to try to bake normal maps instead of the ambient occlusion map. And it's really exactly the same as you would do with the ambient occlusion map. You just select your high poly meshes, then select your low poly mesh, go to the Bake tab, and this time we'll choose normal map instead of ambient occlusion map. So let's do that real quick. I've got my high poly models hidden, so let's unhide those. Okay, there we go. Now we're gonna join these two back together. Okay. Now we are going to grab both of our high polys, grab our low poly, go into edit mode, and before we do that, let's save out this ambient occlusion map. Okay, good stuff. All right, now this time we're going to bake the normals map. We'll use the same settings since they seemed to work pretty good. And there's a couple different settings you can use. I'm just going to use tangent space normals. And let's give it a go. Boom, there it is. All right. Looks a little messy, but let's see how it looks. And there's a couple different ways we could kind of test that. We could set up a material and then basically put our ambient occlusion map and our normal map in as textures, or we could use like a third-party software like Crazy Bump and load the textures that way and then load our model and check it that way. So let's do that. First we'll save out this normal map. Crazy Bump's a really cool piece of software. It's a great way to make normal maps very quickly from photographs or from, pre-drawn diffuse texture maps. And it's a great way to just kind of quickly test what we're doing. So we're going to open a normal map from the file, and that is located in my projects folder. Let's see. Projects, shield, normal map. I'm going to open that. Okay. Now that doesn't look very cool right there. It just looks kind of weird. And it's actually inverted. We want that going the other direction. You can see these look concave here. and that's not what we want, so we're going to increase that to -50. And now it looks like it pops out instead of sinking in. So we can see that detail there that we're getting in our image. Now let's see if we can load in the model itself. And this only supports OBJs, ASEs, asks, days, and X. I don't know what most of those are, but OBJs are always a surefire bet. So let's export a model to play with. Okay. We're going to hide these to get them out of our way and speed up the scene. All right. Now we've got our low poly shield here. We're going to have it selected, and we're going to go to Export, OBJ. We need to click this Selection Only radio button, and we're going to name it Shield OBJ. Okie dokie. Now, just so you see it, this is where we really start to see this issue of not remodeling the low poly texture. We can see these seams around here where it doesn't know how to make that normal detail because it doesn't truly fit the shape. Whereas here it looks clean. You know, the line actually follows with the model. But up here it's got this discontinuity of not being able to truly meet the shape of what the model looked like. All right, so we're going to load up our shield. All right, and yeah, it's looking awfully muddy, but you can see those details. You can see how in the good spots it's replicating what we did with the high poly model, but on the low poly. So to do this right, we really, want to make a fresh new low poly. But that's doing it. All right. So we know that works. Let's clear all this out. We've saved out our maps, so we're going to clear this out. Just go back to solid shaded mode. And maybe we should be good and make a better low poly. So let's look at where we're having real issues by bringing these back. All right. So you can see all these different areas where it's really not supporting the shape. Now this kind of detail right here, where the front of these wood boards is coming through this faces, that's really not a big deal. It's catching that detail. That's perfectly fine. But it's out here where the shape is just too much for the actual silhouette of our low poly. That is an issue. And we want to see that all around the model. So let's look at the low poly and see how it's meeting up everywhere else. Now it looks like it's doing a pretty good job on the metal plating, except for this point right here, where it is protruding way out, and that's what's creating that issue there, where it's breaking the continuity of our ambient occlusion map. And there's where it's having issue with this side over here, and it's really mostly because we didn't do a great job masking that side. So we ended up getting sculpted detail that goes up onto the wall, and that's not great. But what I'm going to try to do to just fix it nice and easy is just move it over a little bit. And then I'm going to do the same thing over here. Just kind of move it over. And then move these back. Okay. So now, and that's an issue all the way through here if you look at it. It's just not lined up with that outer edge. So that's better. That might help alleviate the problem. And I'm going to test something else. There is a modifier that we can use to potentially help us here called shrink wrap. And what that'll do is that'll take a model that is surrounding another model, and it should try to calculate where these verts lie in comparison to the high poly model. So if I separate this metal plate, the low poly metal plate, back out from the shield, then I can compare just this metal plate to the other metal plate. And let's hide the other two. Let's hide the shield meshes. Oops. All right. Ah, I see. Because of joining, my name got messed up. So I'll hide that. I'll bring this one back. Let's just rename this so we know what it is. Now we'll hide these two. All right, so now we have just these two to compare. And what I'm going to do is on the low poly version, I'm going to apply a modifier called the shrink wrap modifier. And a great place to really see if that's working properly is right there where we've got these vertices that are way outside the actual silhouette of the high poly. So if we go to shrink wrap, help me find that, guys. Where's that at? There we go. And then my target mesh is going to be the high poly metal plate. Then now when I look at the edge flow, look at that. It adheres to the normals for that model. So that's going to help us a lot. And that might fix a lot of our normal map issues right off the bat. So let's apply that. And now we've got a new location for those verts. Now they perfectly follow the mesh. And let's try to go ahead and hide the metal plates. I'll hide first. And then we'll hide these two. Alright, so now we've got just the shield. And we can try the same thing for the shield, but it's not going to form very well to those outer shapes. So chances are we need to remodel this. We will try. Okay. We'll go low poly shield. We'll add the shrink wrap modifier, and we'll set its target to the high poly shield. And it did good for, the front of the shield, but of course it didn't really do much over here. So that's where we gotta step in and we gotta think about redoing this model. So what we can do there is grab this outer edge, start growing our selection until we get to there. And I regret to do it, but I guess just delete it out. We might as well save a backup, shift duplicate it, move it to another layer. I changed that to visible layers so I wouldn't get confused as to which shield I was looking at. Now that I've got it all selected, just delete it out. Delete all of those faces. So now we've got just the stone so far for our model. And what we will do is we'll use snapping. Let's go into orthographic and set our 3D cursor right there. Just add like a cube or something, and then bring all of those verts to the center. And now what we're going to want to do is use face snapping. And I'm going to apply the shrink wrap. Actually, no. Leave the shrink wrap. We'll use shrink wrap. It can actually help us. We'll keep that target as the high poly shield. And I don't think we'll need snapping because of the shrink wrap. So let's check on that. So the vert's moving, and it is adhering to the face of the shield. And since this shape is pretty uniform, let's delete out half of these verts. And turn on a mirror modifier. All right. Now that appears to be working. Okay. We've got our one vert, and we will just start extruding it out and try to follow the shape of our newly sculpted shield here. We'll turn on clipping. All right. And I don't think we need to worry about the bolts. It looks like it looked like they did a good job in our normals bake. The biggest thing is we want to, just recreate the silhouette. And at this point, I think I can just connect that here. Connect that there. All right. And luckily for us, this shrink wrap modifier is doing a ton of the work for us, which is awesome. Let's turn on our F2 add-on again in case we want to use it. No, that is not the result we want. So okay. Looks like the shrink wrap modifier is not quite working how we would intend, so we'll go ahead and use some snapping to correct that. Okay. We may not need that edge, so I'm going to remove it for now. I mean, we want to keep this as low poly as we can afford to. And I'm trying to acknowledge how many edges are in the stone so it'll be easier to connect up to it. And then after that, it's really going to be more important how many edges we've created here, since just like up there, we're going to connect those edges to our sphere. And we can go ahead and try to knock those out. That should all be 1. Well, okay. Since we've already created this edge all the way down here, we can go, how's it go? Nope, guess not. Gonna delete that edge. Just merge those together up there. Okay. And I'm going to do the same thing I did up there for the groove here. Okay, just 2 more to go. Putting this F2 modifier to good use. Seems like we're going in the right direction here. Look at the we'll look at the mirrored side real quick. See that it looks about the same, and it does. There, I just hit. I hit the backslash key to go into local mode, so I could see just the low poly. And you'll notice some of these faces, their normals aren't facing in the right direction. So I can select all of them. I'll go ahead and do a remove doubles, and it already took out 8 verts. And I will do a recalculate normals, so then that looks more correct. And so we're already starting to get some of those grooves that are going to definitely reflect, I think, probably a better result when we do the bake. And you know, when you're doing stuff like this, definitely try to make the edge flow work for you. You know, like sometimes you're going to want or wish that you maybe had it a little lower poly, but as you're having to add more polygons to support the shape, make sure you're putting those, you're putting that density to good use to create these grooves or create, to make it actually start to get closer to replicating the actual shape of your high poly sculpt. I'm going to add another edge all the way across to support that. Okay. All right, so that just about covers the front. Now we're going to need to take our outside edge and extrude it backwards. Let's turn off snapping for that. All right. It's probably good enough. And now what we could do, just to speed this up and make it easy on ourselves, is grab all of these here. Grab everything except what we've got selected by inverting the selection. And do Shift Duplicate and move that backwards. And then what I'm going to do is just delete out. Hold on. Let's undo that. Okay. So let's not grab this. And then do Shift Duplicate and just move that back. Alright. That looks about right. And we'll just grab this interior edge here. And extrude, scale, extrude, scale, and then do the same thing we did on the front. Okay. So basically, it's a little loose, but we've made a cage that can support it. So what we'll do is we'll apply the mirror modifier. And check it again. We'll just apply that because it's not working very well right now. Actually, it might just be that we don't have it set to show. So now you can see it. If we've got it, if we click this right here, we can see it in edit mode and how it adheres to the surface. So we basically just created a cage and let the shrink wrap modifier do the job of making it adhere to the mesh itself. So if we go into local mode, then now we've got something that kind of resembles that shape a little bit better. You can actually see this board running across. You can see that board sunk in a little bit. So that's going to give us better results. And it's not, extremely low poly, but it's really not terrible either. And from here, if we wanted, we could go in and we could find places to optimize it. We could take out these actual supporting edges in the middle of the board, and it would probably be just fine without it. You could probably take out the whole center edge, and it would be just fine without that. But I'm just going to leave it as it is. It's not a big deal. But we are going to have to clear all these seams because they're no longer relevant. So I just grab all the edges, and I go clear seams, and we're going to have to remark those. So we'll grab this edge, and I'm going to apply that. Shrink modifier. And it looks like I've got some separation here, and that's a shame. So what I'm going to do is just delete out a whole half and redo the mirror modifier. Okay. Delete all those verts. Redo this mirror modifier, and the reason I'm doing this is I hadn't fixed the clipping on the center here. So I'm going to do that right now. There we go. So now that is equivalent on the axis. And let's pull, you'll notice this is dipping really low right here. So let's correct that. Give it a little more space. Okay, that just feels right. Let's see. Apply the mirror, and we'll redo these seams. The one on the back doesn't really matter, but the one for the gem, I would definitely create that seam there. And then we'll do the we'll do on the back. So that's something that's going to be less often looked at than, say, the edges on the front. So it's going to be better for us to do that on the back. Okay. Looks like we're still getting some doubles, so let's go ahead and do a recalculate normals and a remove doubles. It removed 33 verts. 33. That's just sloppy work, y'all. But now, just like that, it takes one selection to go all the way around the loop, and that is fantastic. All right, so we just mark that seam, and let's see what we got. We got that and that, and I think that's probably going to do it. So let's bring everything back. Let's bring the other models back. Oh, Alt-H. Come on. Oh, I'm in local mode. That's why. Let's join the shield and the plate back together. What you talking about? Alt-H. Alt-H. There we go. We're going to get the low poly shield and the low poly plate and join them together. So now we still do not have a continuous mesh. Where is our low poly plate? It's right there. All right, grab that, join them together. There we go. All right. And we could join the high poly shield and the high poly metal plate together, make them super dense. Don't press edit mode or you might crash Blender, depending on your computer. And we could add that shrink modifier again, just for good measure. Shrink modifier, and we will use our high poly as the target. And see, this is interesting here. We can actually do a bit of an offset, and that could be useful sometimes in the baking process. So let's see what happens if we do 0.1. Whoa. In this case, it is not helping, so we're going to clear that right back out. But as it stands, it's a pretty good shrink wrap. All right, so let's try to do those bakes again. Oh, first things first, we gotta redo our UV map because we deleted data and now there is not data represented for the shield. So let's go unwrap. Okay. So now we see we've got this. We've got the additional detail for the shield piece itself. And let's just clear out what we got here so we can just look at the UVs. And we'll position these guys back where we had them before. Okay. And I'm thinking we're going to get a lot better of results here. But let's see. Okay. Let's do high poly and then select the low poly. Go back to our bake menu. We can go ahead and bake the normal map first. We're going to keep the same settings. And I'm going to take a quick break and I'll be back in just a second. Alright, looks like it's all done. Let's see what we got. That we're getting some issues on the stone for sure. And let's see if we can figure that out. Alright, that didn't seem to help much. Okay, so the bias there made it a little worse. So let's try upping that bias. That's looking clean. Let's check it out. Only problem I see is that we're getting some run through of this detail here, and it'd probably be easy enough for us to just paint that out. So that's probably what we'll do. But aside from that, it still doesn't look good because look, we're getting all this detail right here on the shield when we want it here. I mean, we could bake them separately. That's a possibility. And then just combine the normal maps. We could tinker with this a little more. That's really interesting. I mean, it pretty much ignored our metal plate. But you can see that that transition on this detail is looking much, much better right here. Now, if this doesn't work this time, I think I'm going to clear these settings back to 0 and see if that does better, because it really might. We might be basically making the cage for the shield too large, and so it's grabbing all that detail. Let's try to just reset it, give it a lower distance and a lower bias, and then we'll work our way until we get the right thing. Okay, so the detail's in the right place there, but we're getting this hold on. I'm going to recalculate the normals for this. It looks like the faces on the back are facing inward when they should be facing out. Yeah, a lot of this is just going to be, trial and error. And this is one place where Blender might could use some improvement. Other tools have, like Max and Maya, have where you can visualize the cage and even edit it, and so that can be very handy. I'm noticing the faceting from the low poly, so I just set it to smooth shading. We'll see if that gives us a better bake. I'm going to see if lowering the distance improves it or makes it worse. This color is more the kind of color you see for an object space normal, not a tangent space. So, if it's just the back, I can fix that, but I'd like to get it out of here so I don't have to do too much manual editing. That looks like it actually improved it a little bit, so I'm going to keep going up. Well, let's see what it looks like. That might be covered up by the metal plate. We'll just hide the high poly, and we'll turn this to texture. And I mean, it looks okay, except for that back. But we should be able to correct for that pretty easily. So let's go ahead and make that next map. But yeah, it looks like that portion's actually covered up by the metal plate, so that's going to be okay. All right, so let's save this map out. And let's set up for the ambient occlusion. Uh-oh. Yep, like I said, don't go into edit mode. That is a lot of faces. Almost 2 million to be exact. All right, so grab the high poly, grab the low poly, and then we're going to change this to our ambient occlusion with normalized, and we'll just keep those settings and see if they work for this too. Well, we got a couple shadow issues in there. All right. Looks like the bias definitely helped us there, so that's good. Well, not entirely. Let's see. I think this kind of goes to show that it would have been a lot easier for us if we just baked the two separate pieces separately and then composited the two images together to get our final map. That would have given us much better results a lot quicker. I'm going to go even smaller on the bias and see if we get something that's just right. Let's check out what that looks like. I think that works for me. We've got that separation again, and I'm not sure why. It's kind of strange, but we know how to fix that. So I'm going to save out this image, make that our ambient occlusion, and we will separate the metal plate. And use that bin modifier to position it into place. Okay, that's awesome. That's what we're going for here. And in the next video, we will proceed to paint it. And I think I'm going to show you two different ways that we could make a texture for this model. All right. Well, I'll see you then.